Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. This is Rockwell Spock coming at you with the weekly comic book roundup. Now, I mentioned earlier this week that there were going to be changes to the roundup, and I think it's time we went into those changes, as I didn't make the video that I intended to make about the changes over the last few days. So, now normally and in fact this week will be as it normally is. I post up a hour and a half long video going over all the comics I picked up, all the new comics from the week. Well, starting next week, what we will be doing instead is separate shorter videos broken up by groupings. For example, there will be an X-Men group, all right? An X-Men video. There will be an Avengers video. There will be a movie tie-in video. And there will be an other video. And there will also more than likely be an event video. The event video will cover if an event is happening during this time period if an event book is a book I'm following. The event video will follow over the course of the month. The event videos will cover the core event book as well as any tie-ins. For example, we'll just go ahead and use the example that's coming up, War of the Realms. While War of the Realms is going on, instead of the Avengers being in the Avengers video, it will instead be in the War of the Realms video, because it's going to be, for the next 3 months, Avengers will be a War of the Realms tie-in. Also, the War of the Realms Uncanny X-Men mini will be covered there instead of with the X-Men books. Anyway, now other might end up being stretched into two. One focusing on street level characters, Spider-Man, Punisher, so forth. The other focusing on cosmic and other realities. Now, Spider-Gwen would still be covered at the street level, even though she is an alter reality character. But, for example, if we get another Exiles book, that will be covered in the other section, or with the cosmic stuff. I'm honestly still working on all the logistics of this, so yeah, anyway. But I figure, if anything, that way, if, say, you're curious about this week, about the X-Men books in a week, hey, go check out the X-Men video. If you're more a fan of the Avengers, hey, check that one out. Whatever floats your boat. Anyway, so let's get to this week's. We actually don't have too much of a haul. We do have a pretty big a book that's kind of a big deal to me, at least. But we'll actually get to the big deal one at the very end. I want to save it for then. Anyway, so let's get started, shall we, with X-Force number 5. So where we left off. Seemingly the mutant population of Transia had been liberated, but turns out they were getting weapons from the future. And who was it that was giving them weapons? Why, none other than Cable's arch nemesis, the Chaos Bringer himself, Strife. And when Strife popped into the presence from the time portal, Warpath was injured. I really, really hope they don't kill off Warpath. I will be friggin' pissed if they do. So, we basically picked up right where we left off. X-Force is fighting Strife and his various lackeys. They're referred to apparently as the Mutant Liberation Army. Strife's Special Forces. So these are primarily mutants from the future. As opposed to the Mutant Liberation Front, which he led in his future, but time travel, it's a thing, just roll with it, okay? Just roll with it. Then, but Cable asked Strife how Strife was able to find him. And apparently, Cable left a trail. And so we have a flash back forward to 2,000 years from yesterday. Cable and his forces are pinned down by the New Canaanites. The New Canaanites are the faction in the future that are led by Apocalypse and Strife. So he sent some of his troops away, and has the rest make a diversion. One of them gets injured, sacrifices himself. Then the ones who have been sent away, something happens, and they all disappear, and are replaced by 3 of them disappear and are replaced by 1 woman. So when Cable and Aaliyah, his okay, I know that she becomes his wife. I'm not sure if at this point she is his wife. So, but we'll just say wife. Return. Tetherblood, an old friend of his, talks about, hey, everyone disappeared, but then suddenly this girl was here. So Cable reads her mind, like, hey, yeah, it's legit. So Blacksmith comes to him and is like, hey, come with me. They find they find a safe house that belonged to Cable in the past, and we learned that since the last time he had been to this safe house, there had been 893 temporal breaches. One of them is critical. That critical incursion being being modern day Beast going back in time to pull the past X-Men to the present. He also learns that his parents are Scott Summers and, genetically speaking, Jean Grey. And that they were his guardians when he was younger, Red and Slim. And anyway, Blacksmith is griping about the fact that Cable Hold herself should have stopped what happened. And meanwhile, Cable has a time machine basically, implanted into his cybernetic arm. And then he explains what's going on to everyone, but then Tetherblood disappears. There's a temporal tornado. Aaliyah disappears, and so Cable goes back in time, ends up at the Xavier School 20 years from now, and it's burning ruins. Back in his home time period, the creatures, some creatures are monitoring things, and they inform Strife that there has been a temporal incursion involving, and so Strife and his army are sent to the incursion site. And that's that. It's kind of more of a catch-up issue. To be perfectly honest, Strife's a villain I really enjoy, and it kind of bums me out that he went unused for so long, because he's not a bad character. I think he's just not. He hasn't always been written well or utilized properly. I mean, hell, one of the best things to do with him is kind of do the old, is it Cable? Is it Strife? You don't know. The story Executioner song was a prime example of this, when in the very beginning, it seems as though Cable has shot Professor Xavier very publicly, but it turns out it was actually Strife who did it. Anyway, moving on. Actually, we'll hold on to that to Hulkverines number 2. Alright, so where we left off here, Weapon H had some kind of cold, which he had managed to pass on to the Hulk who was hunting him, and then he ran into none other than Wolverine. Also, keeping an eye on things was none other than the Leader, who had just escaped from Shadow Base. In fact, the Leader had revealed himself to Weapon H, basically, and threatened his family. But then Wolverine showed up. So, we pick up with, what's his friggin' name? Clay Cortez's wife and kids. I don't want to say wife. Basically driving to their safe house. Turns out their SUV is a submarine, is a submersible as well, and their safe house is under friggin' water. How cool is that? I mean, it's not like the bottom of the ocean, but still, underwater safe house. And anyway, their grandma's there. I think. Well, anyway, so like I said, Wolverine interrupted Weapon H and the Leader, and so now they're fighting. Also, I'm not entirely certain if the kid's grandma is Clay's mom or his girl's mom. So yeah. Wolverine and Weapon H have, a little back and forth, But H gets away, basically, kind of pulling the whole, hey, my family's in danger. And of course, he's going after the Leader. The Leader and some, I want to say, shadow-based troops are watching. And of course, Leader gets away, and just as Weapon H is going to plow through them, Hulk shows up. Anyways, Wolverine pulls Weapon H out of the fight, kind of saying, "Hey, okay, I'm not going to fight you so much. You say your family's in trouble. Well, I'll help you with that." But the leader manages to make himself some humanoids, which are his hench people. Sends them after the Wolverine and Weapon H, but they're intercepted quickly by another batch of humanoids. These are under the control of Dr. Alba, formerly of Weapon X. And apparently I'm guessing she made Weapon H. She explains that her and Leader make introductions. And they manage to impress one another. And so they decide to team up. Anyway, after Hulk has smashed his way through the shadow-based people, then he takes their Master Comm, trying to figure out where H's family's at. Meanwhile, Wolverine and Weapon H are talking. And, it's basically explained that Hulk was fed the bad parts of Weapon H's history, much like Wolverine was. So, anyways, Hulk runs through. And as jumps up and jump into a lake, but the sun rises and he's just back into Banner because that's how things go now for Hulk. So Weapon H and Wolverine go help him, and they find the undersea bunker. They show up. Okay, so it looks like it's Weapon H's grandmother. Of course, Weapon H's kids are fans. That's Shadow-based Leader and Dr. Alba show up to basically take over, and they intend to make more clones. But luckily, next issue will be the end of this. So Anywho, moving on to the Age of X-Men with the Extremis. There. So, where we left off, our merry Department X members had captured a pregnant young mutant during a bust. Well, none of them have any idea what to do with someone who's pregnant, because pregnancy isn't a thing that happens anymore. So, we open up with Psylocke and Iceman helping a young boy who crashed his bicycle. Iceman's trying to fix the bike while Psylocke is helping the young boy. Psylocke makes a point, begins kind of this whole thing of wondering the last time, or she asks Iceman, he remembers the last time he was little enough to be picked up as the kid's parents come and actually carry him away. And so, as they're leaving, though, Iceman picks her up and carries her off back to base. Turns out they have a controlled purge to do that day. Well, that controlled purge, the wildfire that the X-Men put out in Magnificent X-Men #1 was caused by Department X. In particular, Jubilee, who's somewhat fascinated by the flames. It's actually kind of a neat take on Jubilee. Later on, Psylocke and Blob are talking. Turns out that during everything, there was a flash, and Blob has feelings for Psylocke, and she said, "Hey, you know what? I'll erase your romantic feelings from your memory. That way you won't even remember having them. Hell, I can even put a little suggestion in your mind so you'd be disgusted when you see me, so that they won't resurface." But yeah, he runs off. 3 days go by, and Blob keeps calling into work, and yeah. Reports have been going in, but not being processed because he's not there. And I think it's yeah. Moneta is irritated by the fact that they apparently want to. Everyone has no problem with just pushing papers instead of doing real work. Iceman, of course, says, "Hey, pushing papers is real work." There's a note that's been left for Betsy. It says simply, "I don't want to forget. Forgive me." And so they go to talk to their guest. Well, Moneta goes to interrogate their prisoner and is probably a guest. But she's left. Apparently, Moneta's left her in squalor, basically. Due to the fact that Moneta has a very low opinion of so-called retrogrades. Her Jubilee and Azumi argue a bit. And then, but Jubilee ends up leaving, explaining she's going to at least tell them what's going on. That she's been basically chained up in the basement with sure, blankets, food, and water, but yeah, it's still squalor. So later on that night, Psylocke goes to see Blob. They talk a bit, and apparently Blob has quite the library. They're talking, and so Blob explains he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to forget. He needs the way that he feels about her because he needs to feel something. And but she actually she again asks, why why can't she remember the last time she was held by her mother? And then she crawls on the table over to Blob and said, and she let him keep his feelings, but he has to answer one question for her: does it still hurt? That's where the issue ends. Oh yeah, these are the most. These are the man. These guys are even more neurotic than the X-Men, the Age of X-Men X-Men. Anyways, moving on to Marvel Comics Presents number 3. So, where we left off with the Vigil. Once again, in 1954, Logan fought the Truth in China, managed to banish it. Then we cut to 1962, Nevada, at during a nuclear test. Once again, Wolverine fought the Truth with Sylvie's wards in place, and they managed to expel him and send him back. But instead, instead of just kind of going off on his own, going back to what he was doing, Sylvia takes the two of them to Paris, and they get to know one another. And he explains how he bears to live with with the shadow of all the bad things he's done. Is that when happiness comes, even a little bit of happiness comes your way, you pay attention. Anyway, the two of them have apparently slept together. And she leaves a note for him, teleports away, where she meets with her family. I'm presuming that what she did was she slept with Wolverine in the hopes of getting pregnant, so that everything can continue. So that she'll have a daughter that can take on the Truth. Anyways, next up we got Home of the Brave for Captain America. It takes place in Mississippi back in 1964. Cap ends up after a fight with somebody, he ends up unconscious in a chicken coop, owned by a black couple. He wakes up to commotion outside. There's some of the other locals are harassing Cap's host. And he smacks them around. But he is explained to Cap that all he really did was make it worse. Next morning, turns out that Dude's wife is gone to go register to vote. They get part of the way to town and he's told to get out of the car or get out of the truck. Hey, it's going to look bad. It's gonna look even worse if I'm driving around with you in my truck. But yeah, he Cap's host isn't too happy with things. Anyway, so they managed to go sign up to vote. They get home, their house is on fire, and Steve is turned away. He eventually makes his way to a bus station, calls up Iron Man, explains where he's made it to a bus station in Jackson, Mississippi. He's trying to do what he can to, you know, as it ends, he helps a black woman and her young son onto the bus. Anywho. So for our finale, we've got Heart of a Spider featuring Spider-Man. So we open up in Madison Square Garden. Spider-Man is looking up at Crusher Hogan, the man that who Spider-Man fought years and years ago before he was actually a superhero. When he was just trying to, make money before with his powers instead of, doing good. Of course, he's wondering just how the hell he got there. So he just jumps around and stays out of the way, but Crusher's got some moves, and his eyes are glowing green. And he kind of gets smacked around a bit. Then Dr. Voodoo shows up and explains that he's in a dream. And Harlem, Crusher's apartment, it turns out that Dr. Druid is using a spell to manipulate Crusher, or Crusher's dreams. And it manages, but basically, Dr. Voodoo manages to change things and Spidey's free. And also, because it seems like that was Crusher's one big regret was never beating Spider-Man. Spidey figures he'll swing by Crusher's gym and make him feel like a big shot for training him. And that is it. Next month will be Wolverine, Spider-Man, and Moon Knight. And yes, I am quite excited about there being a Moon Knight story in next month's Marvel Comics Presents. Alright, moving on to Avengers No Road Home #7. There's also, which by legacy numbering is Avengers number 714. Alright, so where we left off, Nyx and her children, sans Hypnos, who the Hulk killed, show up in the Hyborian Age, just in time to take the shard of Nyx's soul. Anyways, the issue is largely narrated by Spectrum. Turns out she's sentient radiation, anything on the electromagnetic spectrum and a few things around it she can control, including visible light. And for example, making a hologram of someone or two someones, which is exactly what she did by making it, and in fact turned Vision and Hercules into made Vision and Hercules think, or made Nyx believe that Vision and Hercules were actually her son or her twins. But it turns out she killed them when she thought that she was killing the Hercules and Vision. So, of course, Hercules is quick to leap into the fray. We can cut back to Nightmare's realm. Nightmare basically just wants Hulk wants to send Hulk, Hawkeye, and Rocket anywhere. Hawkeye they each one makes a suggestion. Rocket suggests inside the vault at Granax's gambling palace on Satyricon 6. Basically saying, so he can rob the place. Hawkeye suggests wherever Wanda is. However, Hulk suggests Euphoria. Sentient world. Treats everyone real nice. Makes your dreams come true. Fun place to visit, right? And Hawkeye at least notices that, yeah, Hulk knows exactly what he's doing by suggesting to go there. Anyway, back in the Hyborian Age, the fight between Conan, the Avengers, and Nyx is not going well. Nyx explains to Hercules that in times past she believed physical confrontation was beneath her, but she was wrong, and apparently slaying Zeus was a visceral thrill for her. Spectrum zaps her, however, just in time to save Hercules. Vision's trying to save some of the innocent bystanders that are in the way of the now crumbling building, and gets attacked by Conan because he's like, what the hell is this thing? And yeah. So she destroys the shard, and sees a vision of a house. She takes basically disconnects herself from Scarlet Witch's eyes, leaves Voyager, and tells Oisis, her daughter, not her son, her daughter, to clean up for Mother. And just as Conan's going to go after Oisis, it appears that his love, Belit, has been an illusion of hers has been created by Oisis to go fight Conan, and she stabs him in the heart. Of course, it's Conan, so yeah, well, stabs him in the chest at least. Well, like I said, it's Conan, so we can be fairly safe in the assumption that he'll be fine. Moving on to Black Widow number 3. Where we left off, Widow was in Madripoor looking into No Restraints play, which was having a big get-together on... It was a related get-together on the Prince of Madripoor's yacht, with various luminaries of the underworld. Baron Zemo, Sabretooth, Madame Mask. Anyways, Madame Mask catches Widow watching and attacks her. So the two fight. Meanwhile, well, first off, we get various world over getting notifications from No Restraints Play. Meanwhile, Tiger's way to go, and since she's been invited to get together, she's the one to go. Madam Mask and Black Widow duke it out. When all is said and done, Widow wins and disguises herself as Madam Mask. Runs into Taskmaster, basically kind of making a point of just kind of showing, yeah, okay, she has to really play off that she's Madam Mask. So that she gives Taskmaster her guns. And Tiger and Taskmaster talk to Tiger a bit. And then the Prince basically just like tosses money to the crowd. Zemo and Widow as Mask have a chat, and she basically, in a very polite way, tells him to fuck off. Of course, he comes out. He tries to talk to her again, but then Sabretooth interrupts, explaining that he knows exactly who she is, but it's all good. It's all good. And he even says to her, us good guys need to stay together. But she's being escorted out by the Prince's bodyguard, and the Prince's made her as not being Madam Mask. But turns out that the bodyguard's lips have been poison coating on his lips, so when she tries to kiss him to knock her out, she faints. Comes to. Turns out, seeing as how they have not yet, she's to be the victim on No Restraints Play. That should be interesting, to say the least. Moving on to Alien 3, the unproduced screenplay number 5, the final issue. Where we left off, Xenomorphs were loose on the station. Halliday had been killed, however, Reese at least shot the alien. So, Spence and Reese meet up with the rest of the group. As they run, they run smack into a hive. But they figure a way out. Bishop, meanwhile, goes to the fusion control booth to, bypass the Overlord fail-safes on the safety protocols. While climbing through, however, part of his lower right leg snaps and he falls. And then back to the other survivors. They're attacked by one of the aliens, who bites one of the guys in the leg. But they manage to at least get it off of them, fire a few rounds at it, but whether. So they get into spacesuits, grab oxygen tanks, and make their way towards the shuttle. And they find that yeah, there is a another hive, and Hicks tosses a couple grenades in, but yeah, as an alien is about to grow out of one of the others, Hicks shoots and kills it. Then we actually get something interesting. Some xenomorph on xenomorph action. A more classic xenomorph takes on the hybridized version, I guess would be the best way to put it. Bishop shows up, opens the pod bay door so that the ship can escape. And the remaining xenomorph then gets shot up by a dropship. No one's infected. No, well, I'm not sure if that's Ripley or not. The downside of her not being in the story much, but one of them has radiation poisoning and nothing can be done. So the dropship then gets picked up by a ship called the Kansas City, and it flies off, with Bishop having explained that the xenomorph needs to be tracked down to its initial source and exterminated. Basically, also that the human race is at war with it, whether they know it, whether they admit it or not. All right, now we got our kind of sort of big deal comic, Detective Comics number 1000. 96 pages. Now this is actually a lot like last year's Action Comics 1000. And yes, let's just take a quick look at that Jim Lee cover. The version I got being the, well, like I said, the Jim Lee version, which gives us the Bat family in the Bat Cave, and a bunch of villains as well. So, let's get into it. We begin with the story, Batman's Longest Case, by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. Batman narrates it's a case that seems to have 1,000 parts and has taken him as many days, brought him to as many places. And he said tonight he's closing the book once and for all. So he goes through all the various places he's been. And it all comes to a door in Gotham. When he goes in, he's faced with Martian Manhunter, Hawkman and Hawkgirl, Slam Bradley, Question. I want to say that's supposed to be Elongated Man and Sue Dibney, and Detective Chimp. Basically, it's the Detectives Guild. There are case files all over the place. But, yeah. Next up, we open with we get some back and forth with a few panels of Batman finding the Joker at a circus. We cut to Matches Malone talking with a guy at the Gotham gift shop. Turns out that the public facade is not the gift shop. The back room, that's the gift shop. If it featured in a Gotham crime and it's not in the GCPD evidence room, you'll find it here. And we see various things, one of Penguin's umbrellas, freeze gun, Killer Moth's helmet. And the gun that was used to murder Thomas and Martha Wayne. The asking price is $1,000. Malone pays $1,500. Now, now matches Malone is, of course, an alter ego of Bruce Wayne. It's kind of a way of getting information in a more polite manner in the underworld. And so Alfred talks to him, hey, the penny, yeah, I helped with that damn Tyrannosaurus, but maybe you shouldn't have the gun that killed your parents as part of the trophy room. And Batman explains to him it's not going to the trophy room. Apparently, the plan is for them to melt it down, hammer it out, and it becomes the armor plate underneath the bat symbol on his costume. And this in particular was written by Kevin Smith, Silent Bob, and drawn by Jim Lee. Next up, we've got The Legend of Newt Brody, written by Paul Dini of Batman the Animated Series fame and drawn by Dustin Nguyen. It's various members of the Gotham Underworld sharing their opinions on, Newt Brody. He worked with Joker and Harley one time. It didn't go well. He worked with Mad Hatter one time. It didn't go well. Also, Kite Man and Mr. Freeze. He worked with Riddler once, Poison Ivy. Turns out Newt Brody is yet another alias taken on by various members of the Batman family as a means of having an inside man, basically. Alright, next up we've got Batman's Design by Warren Ellis and Becky Cloonan. Batman's chasing down a bunch of criminals. As he puts it, hopped up on illegal superhuman emulation drugs, full of black market healing upgrades and wearing stolen military-grade power armor. Which delights him because he doesn't have to be gentle. So, he's actually got the whole place. He's basically managed to maneuver the chase into a specific place where he has various traps set up and he's saying, okay, well, let's do this one, and then that one, and that one, and that one. And in the end, though, it comes down to the leader. Not sure. Doesn't really know if he's more afraid of dying or living. He's got a suicide vest strapped to him, and Batman kind of growls at him and is like, Batman is Batman to him, and the guy gives up the detonator. Next up, we got Return to Crime Alley, written by Denny O'Neil and drawn by Steve Epting. We open up with Leslie Tompkins shouting, "Bruce, no." Cut to 35 minutes earlier. Bunch of kids knocking over a party store. Then Batman shows up, talks with Wesley some. And of course, then the kids who just knocked over the party store show up, and Batman smacks them around. But then Leslie stops him. Batman, says, "You feel sorry for him." I was like, he says, "No, I feel sorry for you." So, next up we've got Heretic, written by Christopher Priest and drawn by Neil Adams. We see a young Bruce Wayne getting mugged by a bunch of kids in China years and years ago, before he was Batman. Cut to the present. Commissioner Gordon has called Bruce Wayne to a murder scene. A dead man holding a business card for the Thomas and Martha Wayne Foundation. Then Batman talks to Commissioner Gordon. So they discuss, what it all boils down to. It turns out that the dead guy had singed hair indicative of laser tattoo removal. The tattoo removed isn't marked him as being a member of the League of Assassins. So Batman goes after Ra's al Ghul. But no, Ra's didn't order the kid's death. Turns out this guy had left the gang, or had left the League of Assassins because of Bruce Wayne's influence. But turns out it was the guy's brother who did it. His sister. Actually, I think it's his sister. Turns out that as put, the infection of the dead guy began with the stolen wallet of Bruce Wayne. And Bruce says that Batman tells this group of members of the League that any desire to leave the League of Assassins, he'll be there for them. Anyway, moving on to I Know, written by Brian Michael Bendis and drawn by Alex Maleev. So, we open up with an old man in a wheelchair sitting on the edge of a cliff. An even older man comes up to him. It's the Penguin. He says that the Penguin tells him he wanted this guy to know something. He found out who Batman was years ago. Bruce Wayne. And he explains how he found out. Well, it used to be that one villain or another would get all of them in a room trying, to create some kind of group to go up against Batman. But the conversation always turns to who is he? And of course, the idea of it being Bruce Wayne, Penguin immediately figures it out. But, and in fact, one time he even was going to attack Wayne Manor with penguins loaded with bombs. But he realized that Bruce Wayne is the only thing keeping him alive. If you have Batman without Bruce Wayne, yeah, they'd all be dead. But Penguin explains that apparently it's Bruce. The man he's talking to is Bruce Wayne, and he says he wanted him to know. Penguin wanted Bruce to know that he knew. Then he gets tased by a device on the wheelchair. Turns out Bruce knew that Oswald knew. Next up, we've got The Last Crime in Gotham, written by Jeff Johns, drawn by Kelly Jones. So we've got the assembled family. Family. Batman, Damian Wayne, Catwoman, Helena Wayne, Batwoman, and of course Ace, the Bat Dog. Turns out that the Bat-Signal's been lit for the first time in ages, so they go to check it out. Whole bunch, room full of 12 dead guys, each one wearing a holiday sweater. Thought it was a holiday killer, but they've all been dead for years. Maybe Calendar Man, but Calendar Man's one of the dead. It's not the Joker because apparently the Joker died the night before. Then Batman figures it out, though. Someone wanted to try and recreate the greatest crimes in Gotham in a single night. Someone who himself is a copycat of sorts. The April Fool, better known as the son of the Joker, who is one of the 12. And he explains the same chemicals that created Joker took his life, and those same chemicals are taking his too. He's sick, as was the Joker. And he's grateful for that because without family, what are we? This is how he would have wanted to say goodbye. Sincerely, the son of the Joker. And so Batman unplugs the Bat-Signal, goes back to, apparently it's his birthday, or Bruce's birthday. And so he blows out the candles on his birthday cake and sits down. Alfred wishes a happy birthday, and he sits down in front of the giant Joker card. Next up, we've got The Precedent, written by James Tynion IV and Alvaro Martinez Bueno on pencils. It's basically Alfred and Bruce discussing, whether or not to make, to have Dick Grayson become Batman's sidekick. We got the upsides and the downsides to it. Turns out, though, that and Batman figures, well, this is going to set a precedent. Though Dick Grayson explains to him that, he's the precedent. And so thus began one of the greatest team-ups of all time. Next up, we got Batman's Greatest Case by Tom King and Tony Daniel. So we see Bruce Wayne's car pull up to a cemetery, the one his parents were buried in. Meanwhile, on a rooftop in Gotham, all the various members of the Bat family have shown up. Nightwing, Robin, Signal, Red Hood, Red Robin, Spoiler, Batgirl, Batwoman. The two of them are, kind of trying to... Batgirl trying to figure out what makes Batwoman, her Batgirl, is she older, It's actually really fun. Batgirl asks, well, how old are you? Batwoman says, it doesn't matter. Then Batgirl, you're a woman, I'm a girl, I want to know the difference. Batwoman says, I've been to war. Have you been to war? To which Batgirl replies, I've dated Dick Grayson. You dated Dick Grayson? Yeah, it continues on as Batman stands in front of the grave of his parents. And so Batman shows up. Turns out he was taking a family picture for his parents. It's the best I can do without probably damaging the book. Seriously, this is actually a scene that this is a spread that needs to be done as a poster because it's awesome. Oh, I forgot, Orphan Cassandra Cain was there as well, and Ace, and Alfred. Next up, we got a couple of pinups. Another one should also be great as a poster. This one by Jason Fabok and Brad Anderson. It's got the Batman allies on one side, Batman villains on the other side, with Catwoman's face in the middle near the top. It's really quite cool. Again. Then we had the final story, Medieval. It's being narrated. It's all just narration about seen him quote various things about Batman. And after a while, it goes on to say that the Batman of his story is a cancer. Cancer that has metastasized and darkened Gotham City. Batman has no sense of empathy. Only a misguided sense of purpose. He's blind to the world around him. Blind to desperate men and women with desperate loves. Unwilling to bend. Unwilling to receive that a void needs to be filled. He doesn't offer hope. Only a world of hopelessness. There's equal opportunity. Is he immortal? Well, the narrator knows to find out. Then we learn that each page is Batman fighting various villains. Basically a splash page of Batman fighting various villains. And then the finale. Batman, say it fast, really fast, as fast as you can, over and over. So what do you hear? Batman, bad man, Batman, Batman. To me, now and forever, one and the same. The people of Gotham City deserve better than a dark night. They will experience the hand of a fair and true servant at work, and they will bear witness to the Arkham Knight finally delivering justice to the Batman. And so we have the final story, Medieval, written by Peter J. Tomasi and drawn by Doug Mahnke. And that is Detective Comics number 1000. Side note, I also picked up a few years back during the New 52 era, Detective Comics number 27 from the New 52 Restart, which was also quite interesting. Anywho, that is it for now. I will be back later on. Definitely got a building team coming up this week. No movie reviews, but we're doubling up on them next week with Pet Sematary Shazam. This is, as always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified when I put new content. Links to Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon in the description box down below. This is Rock Roll Spock signing off saying, live long and rock hard.